Yes. So yes, it's open for questions. And perfect. We have the first over there.
Hi, I'm Shivani, and I have a burning question to Professor Javier about, and it's fascinating to learn that carbon dioxide can be converted into something useful.
Yes.
I'm curious about the byproducts. Are there any byproducts in the process? Are they useful, useless? What do you do with them? Could you elaborate a bit?
Before I need to repeat the question for the audience. So there is a burning question for you, Javier, about if in the conversion of CO2, is there any byproducts and what to do with them in the case they exist.
Yes, there are some byproducts, and they usually are other hydrocarbons that are probably not as complicated as like these ones. For example, if you are trying to make ethylene with a 90% conversion, I guarantee you the other 10% is methane, so you only have one carbon atom. So it's not like it's a waste in the same, so that is a pollutant, is that you have not been able to connect two carbon atoms. You have been able only to reduce CO2 into methane. Here the big challenge, of course, is to make extremely complicated molecules just by introducing them electrons, by reducing them. So yes, that's probably the best answer.
Thank you very much for the question. Some of the questions from the audience. So please, Enrique.
Actually, the question is for the three. Usually we are told, everything, like we need to reduce consumption, we need to try to recycle, we need to try. Somehow the responsibility is always on the society, but we don't hear that much about the responsibility of the supply chain and the industries. And I know there are regulations, but not all the countries regulate in the same way. So, what are your thoughts about that? Sorry for the.
No, this is a very fundamental question, and I will repeat it again. So Enrique had a question to actually the three members of the panel. It's a very general question that, as consumers or members of the society, we are encouraged to recycle, to maybe consume less, to contribute to the sustainable development. But what is actually in the end the responsibility of the overall supply chain in reaching these SDGs? So I don't know if maybe we can take it one by one.
Do you want me to start? So usually regulations apply to companies. We are not so much regulated as companies. So that is a good thing. The other thing I could say is we as customers, we cannot keep consuming at the level we are doing. And if we keep buying, people will still be producing. So that's why we control market. And the final thing I would say, because that's probably misleading from our side, we as scientists may give the impression that there is some kind of new technology, that new kind of energy, that once we have it, all the problems will be solved because we are technology driven. If that will be true, 1 billion people will not be dying of diarrhea or cholera because they don't have access to clean water. We know how to chlorinate water for more than 60 years, and there's still people dying because of that. So there are two things in addition to having the technology. One is the political will, that those regulations like chlorinating water are applied, and then the economic incentive for bringing that technology to Africa.
If Solange or please.
I think that fortunately the society is very much concerned today with the utilization of greener products, no? And we have some options in the market, but still so many to be developed. In the industrial side, we can see that there are many companies trying to adapt to the processes today to be more sustainable. This because they have to consider some regulations or not, but I think that it's not just the case of having regulations. I think that this is a mindset, and as I started explaining, the society is very much concerned today, and I think this is an extra motivation. And when I talk in my specific case on biotechnology, as I mentioned, the economic aspect is also very challenging. And when we produce a low-cost product, like the case of biofuel, for example, it's not easy to implement. Then there are also these barriers for the industry to reach the market. No? And in some cases, these subsidies from the government or they are really important also to help the deployment of the technologies. No? But I think that overall, if I can answer your question, the industry is very much putting efforts today to develop new, greener solutions.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I agree with my colleagues' answers, and perhaps I can add one direction that could be interesting, because the difficulty in this topic is also enforcing or keeping track of the actions, right? And then with that, it comes accountability. And there is an old idea that is experiencing a revival these days, which is the PCAs, personal carbon allowances. Now, in the context of technology with apps and data-driven methods, is much more, let's say, feasible to have a proper tracking of the carbon impact of individuals, of companies, and broadly of the supply chain. And perhaps that can be a direction. Of course, I'm not sure about the legal implications of that and how to actually, develop it. But the accountability, in principle, would be there. So I think that could be a direction that helps.
Thank you very much for a very nice and harmonious answer from the panel. There is a question here from Tanya. So,
Yeah, well, I actually have two questions.
wait, make it difficult for me.
Same price.
I will go step by step. Question and then so my first question is actually if you would have any tips for us who work still in the lab. Like we belong to this industry who is consuming lots of plastic still, who are producing lots of like not that nice like things that we pour out to them. I mean not pour. I mean we have protocols now that we all follow and we bring ethics. But maybe you have like any tips for us just to make research more sustainable from these 17 goals that we have.
Yeah, so Tanya is asking about how to make our work as researchers more sustainable. So tips in the sense of maybe use of plastic consumables, chemicals, etc.
I think Ricardo actually answered that question when he was talking about not dumping all the questions to algorithms because energy is too free. So I would say think twice before doing your experiment. Consider that you are doing animal testing, that every single plastic, every single chemical, because we in the lab use extremely toxic materials. We are allowed to do that because we need to advance knowledge, right? But that comes to a cost, like Ricardo was saying. So think twice. When we are using animals, of course, we are more careful, that have a very clear ethical impact, but give us the impression that, oh yeah, who cares if I'm using extra plastic of another kit or something like that. We have more responsibility because we are using extremely toxic materials and we need to be extremely careful. And I think now we are more careful. There are protocols, as you said, to recycle every single thing and we are more conscious. But still, because we are researchers, we think we have like a blank check to use whatever is needed and we need to think twice before doing the experiment.
I don't know if you have anything else to add to.
No, I mean, I agree, and of course, I mean, it applies with chemicals and with the electricity consumption of this type of large simulations. There is a bit of there's more awareness now, because now when you use these very large computers, you get a kind of like a receipt with the consumption, but also the CO2 emissions associated to your simulation. So you're not just in your computer looking at numbers and then you're happy. You know what is the environmental cost of those simulations, and that maybe makes you think twice, before running one more case or not. So I guess awareness is, one very important first step.
So there is a guideline to do that, which are the 12 principles of green chemistry, as you may know, like, atomic economy, using less solvents, using catalysts. So there is a guideline to do that. I mean, that should be the first thing I would say. Just follow the guidelines for green chemistry. They are now everywhere. Actually, we teach them now pretty much in every school.
Yeah. If I can just add, I think that everything starts with a good planning. No? If you start planning well your experiments, you avoid make unnecessary experiments. Then this is already a good starting point. You avoid loss of time, loss of materials, and etc. Then a good planning, I think that is the main start. And of course, in the lab activities, there are so many details that you can put attention to. As I mentioned it in the beginning of my presentation, even in our daily lives, we can put sustainability in our mindset for everything. Even from the small actions like disposing everything in the right place so that your colleague can also take exactly that box for recycling. This is also a way to proceed correctly and help the others. That sustainability is not just the case of promoting economic and environmental impact, but it should also be good for people, and make friendly actions working properly is also a way to promote this social welfare, no? That usually we forget to talk about it, but it's also important.
Thank you very much. Yes, your second?
I actually was thinking on when I was a student, or even in Brazil, right? We don't have that many resources as compared to in the more developed countries. I'm going to put it with these words. And so one comes here, and then all of a sudden you are allowed to use all of this much plastic, right? I think that we should also start teaching the students. I think this is rather important. I know this case, there is an institute in Brazil, actually. Don't know exactly where, but I've heard of this because I've been teaching on sustainability. And so the thing is that there is this facility there that what it does is just to bring all of the plastic from all the institutes and just clean it, and then yeah. And I thought to myself, is that sustainable enough? Because you are also bringing resources back. That can be for an afterwards, maybe over dinner. Now my second question is actually for you, Ricardo.
Yes, Ricardo.
So if you could comment on the algorithms that AI can develop for preventing biases in society.
Yes, so the question that Tanya has is, what about the algorithm from AI to prevent biases?
Yeah, that's a very active area of research in AI, and of course it's one of the, let's say, challenges when it comes to deploying full-scale applications that affect society. But perhaps one important, one clear source of biases is in the data that is being used to train the models, and it has been seen that algorithms saying that recruitment processes, for example, or decisions regarding legal implications, they reproduce the biases and mistakes of the human knowledge that has been used to train it, of course. But there is, so of course, identify those biases before doing the training. It's important. But another perhaps less well-known source of bias is the model itself, the choice that you make when you build a model. If your model is doing face recognition to make a certain decision, the types of features that you are deciding to include on your model are going to affect the result and are going to bias the result. So I think one first step is to really have diverse and inclusive AI development communities, to be able to be aware of biases that perhaps a set of the society is not aware of, in the data and in the models. So that's one first step. And then there are technical AI solutions to try to identify through statistical measures these biases and try to account for them. But as I said, that's a challenging and very currently active area of research.
So thank you very much. I want to thank again the panel. Please join me with an applause to them.